Welcome back. This is the Woman Weapon podcast. I'm Rachel Eliza. Don't forget, woman, you're a weapon. I'm sure you haven't forgotten. I hope you haven't fucking forgot. But in case you need the reinforcement, she's there. So, this was my first Zoom podcast. Therefore, moreover, henceforth, I forgot to do an introduction. So, what this episode is we're talking to Clara Rhodes, who's a great friend of mine. She's a singer, she's a songwriter, she's done our song, she's done our logo, she does some graphic design. She is just at the beginning stages of her music career. So we touch a little bit about that and also her depop career because she's been quite successful on there, and I know it's something that quite a lot of people are trying to get into. And we're so similar. Can I speak English? We are both introverts who consider ourselves empaths, and we're creatives. So we kind of have a lot of similar feelings and views on certain things. So it's been interesting to talk about that. If you are like us and you're also an introvert who's an empath, then you'll probably relate quite a lot. So yeah, let's get into the episode.
You do Depop, you're a singer.
Yeah, I've always loved singing, but I think growing up where we grew up and going to the school that we went to, I just literally thought it was just like I felt like when I said I wanted to be a singer, I wanted to be an artist, it was like me saying I wanted to be like a unicorn.
Yes.
It's like I never pursued it seriously, but I always had this kind of belief that it was going to happen, strangely. I just didn't know how to kind of get there. Long story short, I ended up going to Edinburgh Uni, and I got there and I thought, what the fuck am I doing? I don't like any of this. I don't want to be a translator or whatever I would end up being. And I was far from home and everything, and I just thought, this isn't worth it. I don't know what I'm doing. So I dropped out. Well, it was in that time I kind of got really depressed, basically, like the first semester. My parents had like split up like the year before, and it was all just like a bit of a melting pot.
Yeah.
But it was being alone and realizing that I didn't want to do those things that I realized, like, right, what do I want to do? And I had to really like sit down with myself. I think that's the first time I've really had like a proper like talk with myself. The only thing that that gave me enjoyment in that time was still like music, making music. So I thought, right, fuck it, I'm just going to try and do this. Like, how do I do this? How do people do it? And then I realised that Leeds College of Music existed, which school never told me about. Got in, did music production, because I thought, if I want to send demos to labels or whatever, I'm going to have to learn how to make my songs. I can't rely on someone else to do it for me, and I don't have, 100 quid to go to a studio for an hour. I'd made a couple of demos, and this was getting into like the depop-er era. I had been working at like bars since I was like 16, and I'd met my boyfriend by this point, and he had some savings together. And I was always complaining because I was working at a golf club, and like all these old men would like whistle at you for drink and complain about the smell of the perfume affecting the pint. I just couldn't stand it anymore. So he was like, right, because I'd done Depop on and off while in that sort of gap year period, and he was like, right, why don't we find an actual wholesale supplier? Like, why don't we do this properly so that you can just replace it as a part-time job, and it'll be great because then you don't have to ask for a holiday. If you need to do a gig, you can just do it because you're your own boss, kind of thing. And he lent me a bit of money for my first bit of stock, and within about a month I'd like paid him back.
Oh, sweet. So that was a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
It's also nice to hear that like you went into it with the plan of, this is going to replace my shitty job. And a lot of people say, you have to start these things purely for enjoyment and not with the focus being financially.
I think you've definitely got to have, there's got to be areas about it that like you're going to enjoy anyway. Like, I knew that like I'd enjoy the kind of styling things or whatever, even though I look back at some of the pictures and I cringe the hell out of them. But
that happens with every creative person though. There's dance stuff that I made like 2 years ago, and I look back at like on my iPad really bad quality videos of it, and I'm like, wow, that's really what I thought was good at the time.
But I think with Depop, it's quite important to do it to like know that there's probably going to be a year where it needs to be a side thing. It can't be like, don't expect it to be paying your bills kind of thing. But yeah, it was a good 6 months before I started seeing a proper return for myself, because the money I was making I was reinvested into the business to buy more stock. It's a lot of work, and it was every night, you know, uploading stock or taking pictures for 2-3 hours. It's really hard, but when it starts to pay off, it really starts to pay off.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But it is about the hustle though, and about, like you just said, when other people be doing, you know, watching Love Island or something, you got to sacrifice that hour or two of downtime because you want to build something, because you want to make something of this. It becomes battle of the fittest, and it's like the people who really want it will persevere and will get to doing it. But the people who are kind of half-assed and are like, oh, this is a lot more effort than I realised, they're the ones who will not persevere, you know?
yeah. And I think that's another thing about, like, for some reason I've always had quite a good work ethic and drive. With the Depop thing, something that really spurred me on was literally just money. Like if I didn't do it, then I wouldn't be able to, or well, not that I wouldn't be able to eat. I would be able to ask my parents, can you lend me £100 here? But it would be lending it to me, you know, and I don't like taking money off people. You kind of got to think of every little tenner as like, what can I do with this? How can I make this into 100?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that requires a lot of patience as well, which people don't.
And self-discipline.
Yeah.
And I think people love to like harp on about self-love in the kind of way that they do on Instagram. It's kind of made self-love as a phrase seem really like not authentic. Self-love is also self-respect, is also self-discipline. You need to be disciplined enough with yourself to be like what you said, I'm not gonna be down in the dumps, therefore have a mad night out and then, you know, figure out my troubles tomorrow. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have the discipline to be like, no, how can I make this tenner work for me right now and give me more opportunities, like give me more food next week, pay my rent, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think self-love, I think, really was a phrase probably coined more to do with like body confidence and stuff.
Yeah, perhaps.
And then I think it has kind of been bashed around so much. It's one of these phrases, like, you know, we were saying, like manifestation, where you just read it and the word kind of no longer means anything to you, but you still say it without computing what you're actually saying. And I know I can think of a few characters I've come across in my days. They're like all for self-love, and self-love to them means never admitting fault. Like always being nice to themselves even when they don't deserve it.
Honestly, right, you just got onto something there, because something that I've been thinking recently is self-discipline is self-love, and self-love requires you to not always be easy on yourself. You know, everyone goes, oh, be kind to yourself. Yes, be kind to yourself, but also have your best intentions at heart. Like, instead of every time you know, have a shit hour of your day, instead of throwing away the whole day and going, all right, I'm just going to chill then, I'm just going to have a self-care day, there will be days when actually that is not working in your favour. That's a day you need to just push through and do the shit that needs to be done, because you don't know, in the next few days you might get COVID, and then you really won't be able to do that work that you could have done before, and then you'll really feel like shit.
It's balance, isn't it? Like, I think that's the most important thing about life is balance, and like,
for sure,
learning about one side of things, thinking about something from one perspective. Like, take that example. You've had a bit of a shit day and you think, part of you thinks, right, okay, well, I could throw the day away and I could just focus on myself today, and I could, you know, paint my toenails and, you know, do my fake tan, whatever it is. But then you need to like try with everything you think about to like counter that and be like, okay, what's the counter argument for this? And then when you've thought of both things, then think, okay, what's the best option? And then the best option would probably be, right, I'm going to have a 2-hour break, I'm going to watch something nice that I enjoy watching and just paint my toenails, and then later on I'm going to go and like start this essay and do it till 4 o'clock, you know, and you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, definitely.
With people that just go like so one way and like so another.
Yeah, if it's from the perspective of like your best friend, you know, someone who really knows you, if you're complaining to them about like, oh, this has just happened, oh, I don't feel like doing the work I should be doing, I don't feel like doing these jobs that I need to get done, there'll be times when your best friend will be like, no, do it, you'll feel better for it. They'll be like, I know you, I know you'll be more pissed off tomorrow if you haven't done it.
Having a best mate is so beneficial. Someone like that that'll kind of tell you it objectively is exactly that. They're telling you it objectively because they themselves aren't going through it, so they don't have the emotions attached to whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think so many people, I think that's probably like one of the biggest things that self-growth does, is teaches you somewhere along the line that like your emotions are a completely separate thing from the objective truth of what is happening. And like there are so many times where my initial reaction to something, I feel like I feel things quite deeply and quite intensely. I don't know whether it's like normal, but like, so my reaction to something on the inside will be like, feels like someone's like stabbed me in the chest, and I'm like, I'm really upset about that. Like I could just like burst into, I'm really upset. But then my brain sometimes will be like, you feel so disproportionately upset about this because this is such a stupid, minute thing. But too many people will just react based off the emotion and be like, I feel really upset about it, therefore it must be something to validly feel upset about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean,
we are like such similar people.
I know.
You quite an empath? Do you consider yourself an empath?
Yeah, too much, I think.
Same. And do you consider yourself an introvert? Because I do.
Yes.
Right. I think that's the thing. It's being an introvert and having like enjoying your own time and having a lot of introspection and like being quite an observer.
Yeah.
And then also being an empath where you just feel so deeply and like you just want to take away all the burdens of other people and like
then I think that's why we get blunt, because we get frustrated that other people aren't like that, because I feel like I put so much of myself into the people I surround myself with, and if I don't get it back, then I get fucked off. I expect that from everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can't expect everyone to love the way that you love.
Yeah.
But it's a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But like, well, if I can be like this for someone, why can't someone be like this for me? It's deep. But it's definitely the mixture of being an empath and being an introvert, because those two just allow for like the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings to really get deep.
Yeah. By definition, you're removing distraction when you're an introvert. So it allows for the introspection, if you know what I mean. You know, if you're around people constantly, you have less time to reflect and think and what have you. But I often like question that, because I'm like, am I an introvert? I think so, because I feel like when I'm around people for too long, especially if they're people that I'm not completely comfortable around, it's like I've got a mental battery that does not last very long at all.
Honestly,
and I just feel
person.
Right.
And if there's a group of people, right, I'll be quite loud, and people who I'm comfortable around will say that I'm quite gobby and quite loud, and I can be blunt or abrasive or whatever. The people who I'm not comfortable around and who maybe don't know me as well, they think like I'm bubbly and really sweet and stuff, and I'm like, no one who's close to me would call me bubbly. I'll tell you that for a fact. Like, I'm a nice person, a kind person. I've got a lot of good qualities. I'm not bubbly. Like, and it is the whole thing of who you're comfortable around, and especially if I'm in a big group of people, I like have a very finite resource of energy to give out.
Yeah.
But if there's a group of like 4 people, maybe 4 or 5, I'll like 4 or 5 people or less, I'm quite like on form. If it's more than that, I really get depleted and I get so tired, like physically, mentally. I'm like, I have to have my own time after this to like recharge.
Same.
I literally just be on my own in my room.
I think for me, it's not necessarily the size of the group. Like this, for me, isn't draining because I'm talking about something. Like I feel like I'm being about I'm talking about things that I genuinely think about all the time, and
Yeah.
enjoying the conversation with someone that also relates and is enjoying the conversation, I hope.
Yeah.
And like, you know, engaging and stuff. So it's like, it's not mentally draining, because I suppose what it is like anxiety. It's removing the anxiety. Whereas if I'm around someone where it's like we don't really have a lot in common, maybe don't share the same sense of humor, or we've just met or something
Yeah.
like and I've got to do small talk,
Oh.
my mental battery will go down like as if it's just been hit by a brick. Because
Because that's almost like more taxing for your energy to have to keep up small talk, stuff that you don't actually care to talk about.
there's that kind of buzzing thing of like, are they judging me? Like
The anxiety.
yeah.
And like thinking, I get it to this point where if it is in that scenario, someone that I don't really know, I have to remind myself, listen properly to what they're saying, and then like react and then say something else. But anxiety makes you, while they're talking, you're thinking of your next response or your next thing to say.
I think that's why sometimes people think that I'm confident when I'm not, because it's like you say, you like, I suppose my coping mechanism in that scenario often is just like, just talk, just keep talking. Like keep talking and you keep coming across like smiley, whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be fine, and hope you'll, you know, if you keep talking, you'll land upon something that you can both actually talk about. So I think people think initially I'm like confident or whatever, but I suppose it's a bit of a front. I don't like the word front, because I think usually that's used to describe people that are kind of fake or whatever. I think all of us are fake in certain scenarios.
Yeah.
Just because we have to kind of, you can't be your complete self around everyone you first meet.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know what their sense of humor is or what their sensitivities are or what. But yeah, I think it's putting on that front, because it's like, I suppose, like an active conscious thing you're having to like do all the time is what drains your energy, rather than a situation like this where no front, nothing, just talking about what you genuinely think. And you know,
Yeah, and this is a conversation that we would have if it's not recorded.
yeah.
I mean, like, and that's kind of also why I wanted to do this podcast, because I guess I've called it like interviews before, but it really isn't an interview. Like, I don't have a list of questions. It's important to have like an organic conversation.
Have you seen Joe Rogan?
I've subscribed to it, but I haven't actually watched any yet.
It's like this. It's kind of like it's like they just chat for like 2 hours, but he kind of steers the conversation sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if what they've said hasn't come across clearly, he'll try and get them to phrase it clearly and stuff. But it's nice because it's like you say, especially during Corona, it's like it's nice to just stick stuff on and feel like it's almost like, yeah, you're like sat with two friends that you just can't talk to. But
yeah, I follow like loads of people because I hear them on podcasts or I see them in YouTube videos, and I'm like, oh, they seem like someone that I'd be friends with.
Same, but I don't get, you know, these people where they're like, oh, like most of my friends I've met online, like influencers and stuff, and I'm like, but how? Like, how has that happened? Like,
that's sliding into the DMs for friendship.
I'd feel so weird doing that.
Yeah.
But some people are not introverts.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess it's easier to do it in the DMs than it is like making new friends in person, you know?
I think so. I don't know.
Unless you're put in an environment like work or education.
It's
but
like,
then, like, as adults, when do people ever create new friendships or relationships which are not associated with work or uni?
Yeah, it's got to be a very like unique circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. Like when things start opening up again, sort of like, I wonder how affected we'll all be in that sense.
Yeah.
Like even just interacting with people that I know, but being in a big group or something like that, like, is kind of daunting. But meeting people and talking to people in clubs or whatever. Clubs, don't know. Is there any point in even talking about them?
I'm kind of done with the idea of clubs though. Like now, bear in mind all this has happened, I'm excited for bars to open and to be able to sit in a group of people and chat.
I was kind of done with clubbing
Mm.
pre-corona, like this time last year. Like I didn't want to spend 2 days getting over a half decent night anymore. Like
Yeah.
those 2 days were valuable. So if I wanted to go out, it had to be kind of, I knew I was going to have a good night and it was going to be worth it. It was only kind of recently I found myself like craving it again.
Yeah.
And I kind of like looked at it and I was like, why do you crave this? I don't like drinking anymore. For just that reason, like it really fucks with my body and it takes me days to get over and everything. And I realised it was because of the fact that kind of going into like the kind of self-love image and like different fronts of yourself thing, nights out made me have to, you know, like we're like multifaceted human beings. We have these different almost like personalities that we step into depending on the situation. Doesn't make it fake, it's just how it works.
Yeah.
And I realized that like going on nights out, it made me have to step into a confident personality and like a feeling sexy, feeling beautiful, feeling like walking like with your head up kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was the only opportunity I got in normal life really to do that and like really spend a few hours dolling myself up, doing nice things for myself, go out with my friends, socialize and have that confident thing. And I think that was almost like brain training every few weeks.
Yeah.
It was reminding myself of like you can feel sexy, you just need to like do this or do that, and well not need but you know, and I think because we haven't had that for so long, that's really that's one of the things starting to affect me. Like I haven't felt like uploading an Instagram picture in like 9 months.
I'm a dancer. I would go to clubs and like practice my freestyle. You know, it's a space where there's not a lot of room, but there's really loud music and like you have no control over what's going to be on next, and you know, you have your drinks or whatever and you'll just be with your friends and be vibing. And I would use it to get more confident with like my style as a dancer, and then also like just generally feel more confident
with us in creative industries. Not necessarily creative, but like you say, you're a dancer, so you know that there's going to be times it's almost like acting. It's the same with me singing.
Yeah.
There's going to be times where I don't know, the lyrics in my songs are on about something like with a bit of sass to it, and so you know I'll have to perform it in a certain way, or I walk out on stage and you know there's thousands of people there, and as an introvert that is not like a likely scenario that I would want to put myself in. But nights out are almost like practice for those situations where
that character that you have to tap into.
Yeah, the performer in you.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, that's kind of been providing me with a lot of anxiety recently, because obviously now I've like actually signed the thing that says I'm going to be doing those things at some point in the near future. But my whole like confidence has like disappeared. So
it would though, because of the pandemic, because like we've been saying, we have no, you know, experiences like interacting with that many people. So just think about it, like it's not going to get any worse from here, it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And you'll overcome it. You'll overcome it when you have more experience and you start to, you know, be like taking ownership of like, this is my music, this is my career, this is what I wanted. And I can't wait for your music.
I can't wait either, because I'm excited to like see. I'm excited to see what improves. Because like you say, you know, when you look back on stuff, like I was going through all my songs, trying to write them up, writing out some of the old lyrics, like some of my old demos, thinking like, how, like this is so bad, like why did I think this was good? And like I can see how much I've improved even in the last weeks. So like
I think you did your best at the time.
Yeah,
it's kind of like nice to look back and think, oh wow, that's not great, because then you can see how far you've come.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited, like if I kind of continue on this whole track for like the next year or so, I wonder what will actually be the things that are released, and
Yeah.
like I wonder if I'll look back at stuff I've created like now and think like, oh god, I've come away since then, or maybe it won't be good, who knows.
No, I know it will be. Don't be silly. I was gutted when you had to take some of your stuff off of SoundCloud because I love listening to your songs.
What I'm learning in this process is like I was so protective over my art. Like it was like my art, like it's kind of thing. But I'm realizing that like it does have to be accessible to people, and that doesn't mean that I'm a sellout, and it doesn't mean that being accessible is the same as being like commercial or whatever. It's just like not everyone's in my head, so something that like is really particular to me, or a lyric or something that might be a bit odd, but I like it because it relates to this memory that I have. Well, no one else has that memory, so I've got to kind of really hone the craft of like still having it be authentic, and you know, I want to make stuff that's a bit abstract and maybe hasn't been heard before or is genreless or whatever, but like I still want the average person to be able to listen and enjoy and take something.
It's also about like letting go a bit.
Yeah.
You know, like you said that you are quite a critic of yourself. So am I. I think a lot of creatives often are. And it's about being a critic, but not being so much of a perfectionist, because perfectionism kills creativity, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
But also when you become more established, you will be able to then just fully like, you know, do whatever it is that you want. You know, when you have created and cultivated like your records and your audience and stuff.
Yeah, I think someone like, I always bang on about him, but Frank Ocean is like one of my biggest sort of inspirations. And I think he's the perfect example where I'm pretty sure he started as a songwriter. He wasn't even writing his own stuff. I'm pretty sure, thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Like it was written as like an R&B song or something, or like a country pop song, and then he took it for himself, and like he managed in his earlier stuff to really hit the nail on the head of like doing his thing, being different, but you know, your average Joe will still listen to him. But it's almost, I suppose, like you say, letting go and kind of making compromises and thinking, well, like just because I'm saving bits of my artistry for later dates doesn't mean that I'm compromising my integrity.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think I was too conscious of like selling out and being commercial, and like
right.
I don't want to just be on the ladder for the sake of this or what, you know, but it's about realizing like, well, if you want to do your art, you kind of need to earn the stripes first.
Yes.
If you want to have a big label behind you or whatever funding it and allowing you to live and make it, you can't have it all necessarily. Some people do, but it's hard, you know.
Yeah, you've got to, you know, learn to walk before you can run and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on the Woman Weapon podcast. Really excited to have you back when your music has been released, and then we can talk more about your music side of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be good, and then I'll know like what I can talk.
Yeah, what you can and can't say. But you've got to go, haven't you?
Oh shit, I will do.
All right, thank you, doll. Hope you have a good day.
You too. In a bit. Bye.